and welcome. This is Speak Your Truth podcast, where we are on a conscious journey to enlightenment. And today we're going to talk just a little bit about labels, in particular the label of narcissist, which for some reason is running all over the place, like everybody and their mother is a narcissist. So I'm going to reflect from an article written by Amy Brill. It's on Oprah.com, and the title of the article is 8 Things Never to Say to a Narcissist. And she does a really good job. She's an author. She's won several prizes over the course of her career. She's got several books out. She's definitely someone to look into. Her article is quite fun. But it gives you 8 things not to say to a narcissist, which is an interesting way to try to address a narcissist. So the first thing I'd like to do is say something briefly about labels. Then I'd like to talk a little bit about how we communicate when we do this. And then I'd like to talk also a little bit about the narcissist. And I may do that in a different kind of order. But those are the 3 things I'd like to address. So, do you know a narcissist? Are you sure they're a narcissist? And are you sure you want to label the narcissist a narcissist? And what good is that serving you? How is that helping you, and how is that helping the other person now who is labeled a narcissist? So let's look a little bit at this thing that we call a label. Everyone is looking for a way to label someone else. I don't know why it's so important, and I don't know why we're talking about narcissism so much these days, but it's everywhere. Friends and colleagues and clients, it's everybody wants to label somebody a narcissist. And we're having a lot of entitlement in our country right now. We have a lot of, it's all about me, and I'm going to make it to the top, and it's a lot of grandiosity. A lot of those are symptomatic of narcissism. But to really start to label someone in any way is to truly limit who they are and the depth of what they're about, or the lack thereof. So when we talk about somebody being a narcissist without truly understanding the depth and the overall picture of a true narcissist, we're labeling them based upon some aspect of their personality that we are judging or not liking. So the label becomes a judgment, not a way to communicate. When I was operating more as a therapist, we would use those labels only to communicate a group of symptoms in one word. When we use it socially, we use it to judge. I don't use labels at all any longer. If a client says to me they have a partner who is a narcissist, I'm like, okay, tell me why you think that, and let's open up that meaning. Let's open up what might really be happening inside that individual so that we can really understand the individual with whom you are living or working, rather than taking this label and running with it. So I really want everybody to think about a label. Even your name is a label. So when somebody calls you by your name, you are that name, right? If they call you by your name in a way that's like curious and opening, all of a sudden your name opens to who you are beyond your name. That's a simple example, but if you play with it, you see what I say about a label. If we say, oh, he or she is a narcissist, we immediately get an image of this, egotistical, all about me, annoying person. But if I say to another clinician that I'm working with someone who is narcissistic, they get a set of symptoms. So the connotation is very, very different. And it's very, very important that as people, at least to me and to freedom, that we move away from labels and move beyond the limits. Move beyond what we see as limiting and find the depth beyond the imperfections that lead to the limitlessness. So the article is very good, and I really, if you think you know a narcissist and you're trying to control the way you speak to them, this is a fun article to read. It's very short, it's very to the point, and it's very well written. And as an author, she has had to get used to characters as she develops them, so she's done so. You can see that she has in this article. The narcissist is has zero tolerance of the shame within them, a true narcissist. And so some of what she talks about here with a true narcissist, it's going to absolutely ring true. They don't handle any judgment or criticism or blame. They do that outwardly, and everything they do outwardly is showing you who they are inward. They project just about everything because they have no tolerance for anything that makes them feel icky. And anything that isn't perfect and achieving at the highest level and the most beautiful and the best and the bestest could tap on their shame. If they're truly narcissistic and you hit that shame pocket, they have a bit of a rage burst, an angry burst. But that's getting a little bit more into the true narcissist. Really what most everybody is talking about when they talk about narcissism is they're talking about the behaviors. And the behaviors can come from a number of things. Always insecurity. Always no tolerance with shame. Always a wobbly self-identity, if an identity at all. Because that behavior that you're seeing is because they are identifying themselves through their achievements, not through their self. So they don't have a self-identity. Their identity is with the external world. So as you look at these people as an external person, they're trying to make you a part of their internal, an extension of them, and you're trying to be your own person. And that creates a lot of upset. So I don't want to get too much into the narcissistic aspects of things because I really do believe that I could do an entire podcast on what it is to be, what that narcissism is coming from and what it's about so that we can have a greater understanding of the human being across from us. But more importantly, I want you to walk away thinking about this thing running rampant. Now everybody is getting labeled and everybody is fitting into a box and nobody, you can't have everybody fitting into the same box and being the same person with the same blah, 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 blah. That would be awful. So what we really want is to understand what we're saying. So when we say narcissist, let's be a little gentle. Understand that you're talking about a set of behaviors. You're talking about your reaction to that individual, that it's bringing something up in you where you're not being heard, you're not a part of the conversation. They always talk about them and da-da-da-da-da and whatever. And really, entitlement's a very big piece of that puzzle. So you're seeing some stuff in there. Okay, good. Now let's just discern that you're seeing those aspects in the individual. And then let's look at from where they come and what that means to the individual. And ask ourselves, how can we help them move forward? How can we better the relationship? How can we tell them, I love who you are beyond your need to be the best at what you're doing, the most beautiful, the most whatever. And I really would like to show you that you are beautiful, even in your imperfections. Now, what do they do with that, right? But again, using the narcissist as an example, we're taking it out of the label and taking them out of the box and using the behaviors that you have seen and talking about the behavior rather than keeping them in that box of label. So it's really, really important that we, as a people, start to unify based upon our commonalities and upon our diversity and differences. And one of the ways that we can do that is to stop doing the labels and start to open with what might be going on inside the person. So let's use an example out of Amy Brill's thing, that the person is always, always blaming everyone else. So what happens if we just ask that person, have you ever been blamed? And they start telling you all about when they've been blamed and how they felt. Now they're talking about themselves, which everybody likes to do at some level. Well, maybe not everybody, but most people. And they're telling you about themselves. Now listen with an ear that discerns who they are when they're blamed and how much shame and pain came from being blamed. And say, I wonder if other people feel the same way you do. I know I do. And that just doesn't teach them anything. They're not doing anything wrong, but they have empathy, unless they're a true narcissistic personality disorder in which that empathy is kind of specific. But if it's just behaviors, they probably have empathy. So what's going on inside them? Use that as a springboard for questions. No matter what label you're using, if you can use what you're seeing as a way to discern who they are rather than judging and making them that, you open the doors to all kinds of exploration to the person and some of their challenges. And if you can develop enough of a trusting, loving relationship, they will always share with you what those challenges are. So that's a little bit about what I want to say about labels and narcissism. I just want you to kind of think about all of that. You know, they're really, we do a lot of labeling in this country, and it limits us. It creates fragmentation. It ups the illusion that there is a you and me, and that we are very separate, and I'm going to label you but not me, and blah, blah, blah. You have to play with that, but you can see what I'm saying. It goes, say that it goes this way. I don't know how to say that. It keeps everything at the surface level. It doesn't allow any deepening of a relationship, and that's the fragmentation in our relationships. So the last thing I want to talk about is Amy gives you 3 things. I don't know where that came from. She gives you 8 things not to say to someone you believe is a narcissist. And she's pretty accurate if they're narcissistic, that these 8 things you don't want to say. But guess what happens when we try to structure what we say and what we don't say? We fail. And we fail because we can't try to think about what we should say and should not say and what do we, because then inevitably we're going to say it. And then we're going to get frustrated because we think we should have said it different. And all of those expectations don't allow you the freedom to just express yourself, right? So while what she's teaching you is profound, if you wanted just to learn a list of things, because there are 8 things that actually do work, the question is, how can you read that list and implement it in such a way that you can be more embracing, enveloping of that person across from you? You've discerned that they have these behaviors. You know it comes from insecurity and some lack of self-identity. And you know that you care about this individual, or you wouldn't even be reading an article, 8 things not to say to them. So what happens if you read these 8 things and you realize their insecurities and their fears and fears and fears, and instead you just come from that perspective? Can you sit in front of another individual and understand what you're learning beyond these 8 things, so that you yourself will not want to go in that direction? But when you do go in a direction that maybe upsets them and kind of triggers that shame and that anger or defensiveness, you now know what's going on. So again, you can step back and take a perspective of what is going on in the other person and share your own experience. Because again, you're not listening to me, you're not reading the article if you don't care about the individual who you feel is narcissistic. So you want to learn how to communicate with them. You want to learn how to be with them. So how do you do that? Well, you do that by learning a little bit about where they're coming from, a little bit about what they are about, so that if the boo-boo happens, you understand how to shift it into an embrace. So I want each of you just to think about those things. Let me recap. I want you to think about how you're using labels. I want you to think about how frequently people are calling everybody a narcissist, which means we may as well be looking at ourselves as well, because it's going to come back at us, because everybody's a narcissist these days. And then the third thing is, you know, if we are trying to learn what to say, we're limiting ourselves, and we're putting ourselves in a place of listening to expectations and rules instead of our own experience. And that's exactly where we get tripped up in all of our relationships. So I will do another podcast on learning to talk from within rather than just on labels. But for today, look at all the narcissists around you, and then notice what you share in common with them. Because at one time or another, every single one of us shows narcissistic behaviors and traits. That's exactly how in psychology we develop personality disorders, by taking one trait that's exaggerated beyond the balance. So what are you seeing, and why are you seeing it? And then learn to share the truth of what you wish to share in that relationship. Thank you for bearing with the light changes. The sun is about to come out, and it's going to be hitting me right in the face, which will be beautiful. It also means it'll be a steam bath in Florida when I walk out of here. So thank you. Thank you all for joining me. And look at your labels, look at yourself, and learn to speak from your heart and not from a set of rules. But I do recommend you read Amy Brill. It was well done. Thank you all.